Hi, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's conversation. We're here today with Dr. Jeff Doolittle to talk about building a thriving small business culture. This is one of several different webinars offered this year through the Local First program. If you're not familiar with us and you're just jumping in to learn about us a little bit here on YouTube, I want to just introduce you to who we are and what we do through this program. So Local First is a program of People First Economy. We offer three core areas or three core programmatic pieces. The Local First program, which is a membership program for small businesses located in West Michigan. The Good for Michigan program, which is all about measuring your impacts and making impact in the community that you live in as a small business owner. So using your business as a force for good. And our third area is a pilot program around policy. We call it People First Policy, and we support folks building out policy pipelines locally and around the state. Local First has been the flagship program at our organization, running now for 21 years, and it is all about building sustainable places through local business ownership. We really work to support programming that meets the basic needs of people, builds local wealth and social capital, as well as function in harmony with our ecosystem and encourages a joyful community. So it starts with us as consumers and supporting our small business owners here in the community. Today, we're going to jump into a great conversation with Jeff. I'll be passing the reins over to him in just a few minutes. If you have questions, feel free to leave them in our comments. Feel free to reach out to us at membership@localfirst.com, and we're happy to get you in touch with Jeff or answer any questions that we can. Certainly an opportunity for us to help close the loop with you in that area. And I just want to encourage you to learn a little bit more about membership. So Local First is a membership organization. Businesses buy in at varying levels based on how many employees they have. And we support businesses in this membership program by finding customers through a variety of our campaigns that happen throughout the year, our online directory, our print directory, and more. We also work to build business relationships between our small business members. This helps develop a professional network and also close the loop on local supply chains. And then we offer a number of discounts updates. You can provide those to consumers through your directory, but we also work to provide unique opportunities like access to capital programs, ways to get engaged in policy, and more. So these are just a few things that we want to make you aware of, and we'd love to have you join if you're not already a part of our organization. I won't keep us too much longer without further ado. I'll pass it over to Jeff. Jeff, if you want to introduce yourself and then help us dig into this awesome conversation. That would be great.
Sounds good. Thank you, Kathleen. Yeah, so my name is Dr. Jeff Doolittle, and I have been looking forward to this time with you and a chance to talk about a topic that's close to my heart, organizational culture, and how do you create a thriving culture? So we're going to dive into that, and I'm just going to jump right in and get us moving with this topic today. So again, glad you're here. Feel free to post comments and to chat. And throughout the session, you might find some things that just really resonate with you. There is a one pager that goes along with this workshop. So take advantage of that. It has a lot of the key points on it, but you might want to jot down some thoughts. This is a live webinar, so we'll have chance for Q&A at the end, and look forward to answering your questions. So I don't know about you, but you may have found yourself recently saying, man, I don't I never saw that coming, right? You just like, wow, things that I just couldn't believe are happening all around us. Like for one, COVID. I don't think none of us saw that coming, right? And it shifted work to remote all of a sudden. Companies that used to be all in person, all of a sudden now are doing remote work. And then we have the metaverse being $60 billion and projected by Citi to be at 13 trillion by 2030. How many of us thought about doing business in the metaverse? You know, the brick and mortar, we've got online, but now the metaverse too. And then we have Chat GPT and this generative AI. It's now detecting X-rays, detecting cancer in X-rays at a better percentage than some of our doctors. Who would have ever thought that we'd be using generative AI from a medical perspective and changing our lives and transforming healthcare? Or how many of us saw Taylor Swift giving Kansas City Chiefs a $300 million lift in revenue last year? I don't think any of us saw these things coming. And yet they all are impacting us in your business. Another impact that's happening in society that's impacting your business is this distrust that's going on. Amid this uncertainty, we know that the workplace is lacking trust. Based on a survey of over 32,000 people from Edelman, we know that less than 30% of people who will work with, help, or live in the same neighborhood with someone who they disagree on something that's important to them. And I was just blown away at even the willingness, the lack of willingness to help. And that's the society that we're operating our businesses in. Now, let's take it into the workplace. We know that right now, according to Gallup, and they've done some big surveys on engagement, we know that 5 in 10, so what is that? Half of your organization, half of your team, if you have 10 people working for you, five of them are doing the minimum required to get by on average. They're just doing the minimum to get by. We know that 3 in 10 are actually engaged, which means they're committed to your business. They're rowing in the same direction as everybody else on the boat, and they're trying to really advance the business. 7 in 10, though, are not. They're either passively or they're in that quietly quitting, or they've just totally disengaged from the workplace. We also know that 2 in 10 employees rate their mental health as fair to poor, according to Gallup's last global study. This is our teams. These are the people that work for us and the reality that we're operating within. And it's a significant impact on how we get work done, and makes this topic even more important today. So there's no real debate that culture is, a culture, thriving company culture doesn't impact in a successful way the organization. The literature is really clear on this, but I didn't want you to just take it from me. I went out and looked into peer-reviewed evidence base of what does the research have to say or contribute to this topic of culture? Is this really where you should be spending your time? I tell you, if you're interested in attracting the best and brightest, engaging them within your teams, and then retaining them, absolutely. Culture has evidence that just translates into all those elements, as well as your customers and the service they get. Because all the outcomes of your business start with somebody somewhere doing something. And they do that within the context of your culture and your business. So culture is the one thing that impacts everything in a business. We know that, I don't know about you, but reduced stress, I think we're all looking for that. Evidence suggests that 72% of our leaders in businesses or business owners are reporting that they feel used up at the end of the day, just totally used up, exhausted. So they're coming home to families, to a house, to an apartment, wherever, feeling exhausted. They're done. And that's a 12% increase from prior years. Because we could say, well, yeah, hasn't it always been stressful? Absolutely. But it's increasing. It's increasing the stress in the workplaces, translating into burnout and serious issues that are facing leaders and business owners. A proven benefit of a thriving company culture is less stress for the leader as well as the employees in the organization. Another one I want to call out from this list, it's discretionary effort. Let me explain what that means. So if we had two employees, let's say we're a retail operation that uses shopping carts. We have two employees coming into work, and they see some shopping carts out in the parking lot, or say something's disheveled out in the parking lot. One employee stops and fixes it, the other one just walks in. Why is it that one person would stop and fix and do something about it and another person not? This is the idea of discretionary effort. When your employees will give you value beyond what you can ask of them. So in this case, let's pretend neither of the employees had it as their responsibility to do that. Just one of them did it, stopped and did it. What is it? How is this? And that's that idea of discretionary effort. We know that a thriving company culture unlocks what is considered the holy grail of performance management. It's tapping into people giving you more than what is expected. As a business owner myself, as a leader, I know that you cannot ask everything that's possible of people. You just can't do it from setting expectations. But when you can tap into them, then finding and seeing opportunities to improve and taking action and doing that, wow, what does that unlock for your company? It gets you to move beyond what you think's possible, and you can get more done with fewer people. And it's a huge impact because those are people that are committed and they translate into that to their service and how they engage with others. And that all of these things drive business growth. And at the end of the day, I think we're all looking for growing organizations. I worked for one organization and they talked about it. You're either ripe and rotting or you're green and growing. And I think we all want to be on the side of green and growing from a business perspective. So, where am I going with this? Let's talk about our agenda for this workshop, how we're going to spend our time. First of all, we've laid the foundation. Hey, culture makes a big difference. The evidence proves it. The reality of our world and the work that we're in, it's really needed. We're going to get into then how do you define culture? Because again, if you ask 10 different employees or 10 different people, tell me about what is company culture, you'll get 10 different answers on how we define it. So I want to define that. Let's define what is company culture. And then how do you transform your values, the things that we write down about the company that we want to be into a thriving culture? How do we take it and make it go from just an idea into application within your business? And I want to give you some of the proven evidence-based research. One thing you'll know about me is that I'm a scientist by training. I have a hypothesis that your leadership behaviors are life-changing. They impact those around you. They impact our communities. I believe the work and the workplace environment it is translated back into our society, and that a lot of the challenges and issues we face are partly driven by our organizations. So, this idea of creating a thriving culture is life changing for you and for your team and for our society. And I don't think it's a stretch to say for our world. It's an important topic for us to lean into how we do this. My training is a background over 25 years within Fortune 500 type of companies. I've done a lot of work in the past 6 years with my business, really from startups to for-profit, nonprofit, and government organizations. I received my doctorate in strategic leadership. I have my master's in business administration, and I recently wrote an award-winning book, Life-Changing Leadership Habits, that takes these evidence-based from all of the research I did and translates it into a tool that leaders can use to get more out of life and work. And the leaders I work with are looking for that. So I'm glad to be with you, and that's how I'm also a part of Local First, and I'm really glad to be here with you as well. So, what is company culture? Stated simply, it's how things get done when no one's watching. It's the essence that goes on behind the scenes. It's like the breathing. We don't think about it, but yet we do it all the time. And it's the same thing with culture. It oftentimes drifts into the background, making it not so obvious or hard to talk about because it's just a part of who we are. From an organizational definition, it's really based of this model of three different components. One, artifacts, the things, what you hear and see and feel within the organization. So, example, I worked for a retail organization and they have a strong customer service environment. I went to their home office headquarters, and if you're about 10 feet before you get to the door, people will stop and hold it open for you. They just have that strong, you hold the door open for people as they come through. It's that focus on the customer kind of mindset. That's what you would feel. That's what you would see if you go to that office. So those are kinds of, they call those artifacts. You may see words on walls, or you may see people doing certain rituals. Then there's espoused values. These are what you're told people tell you is important to them. This is when they talk about it. What are they saying? What are the kinds of words they use? Again, another company I worked with, they called their team leaders, the leaders, they didn't call them boss, they called them first assistant. It's like, wow, that creates a whole different perspective on that role, right? The idea that they're there to actually serve the employee, and yet they're the leader. So those are the espoused type of values. And then there's basic assumptions. These are the things that just go without saying. They're the things that when you're a new employee, you don't quite know, but then over time you start to pick up and see, oh, this is how people do things, or this is what they do within the workplace. So it's this idea of these three different types of elements that go into creating this and thing that we call company culture, but it's this thing that really comes to life within the workplace. And so I want to share an example. So let's watch a short video on Zappos, which is known for having a thriving organizational culture. And after we watch it, I want you just to kind of think through, and capture a couple of items that what do you think is maybe one or two things that really stand out to you about a thriving culture? So it's a few minutes and let's watch this together.
My name is Melissa Wachichinyola. My name is Phil. My name is Rachel. My name is Vanessa Watson, and to my right, this is Michael.
My name is Donovan Robertson. My name is Tony Shea.
This is Bruce. My name's Abby Morris, and this here is Mr. Becker. And him and I kind of started the new hire program back with the three other team members about 5.5 years ago. Yeah. That was core values. Are deliver well through service, be humble,
Be passionate, determined. Do more with less.
Build a positive team, family spirit.
embrace and drive change,
Pursue growth and learning.
Be
adventurous, creative, open-minded.
adventurous, creative, and open-minded.
Open the door for people. That's not one of them. Create fun, a little weirdness.
Develop relationships or build relationships with open and honest communication.
How was that?
Well,
All right.
all right.
So it doesn't involve me being at work, but I wowed because I went to the store yesterday to get ice for for a party we had, and there was 220s sitting in the cash register dispenser, like someone had got cash and not taken it. And a part of me was like, I could take this and nobody would know. And then the other part of me was like, that would never be okay. And I'm gonna wow the person who got this cash and forgot it, and I'm gonna give it to the cash register, and I'm gonna be honest. And I'm not saying before Zappos I would have taken it, but I will say at Zappos, when you leave here and when you work here, you do become a better person just because of the core values, because of the culture, because of the directors and the leadership. And it does take you outside of the company, and you do talk about the company a lot, and you think about things before you do them. And that's what I thought.
Representing Zappos, whether you're at the office or outside the office. And so definitely always try to act in a way that's consistent with both our core values that we have as a company, which basically are also my own personal values, and also keep in mind kind of the overall mission of the company, which is about delivering happiness.
We are about delivering happiness. We really want to, even if it's just for a moment, change somebody's life when they open up that box and they get something that maybe they've been waiting for, something they need, something for their kids or their family or their loved one that they've been wanting to get. And for that moment, we're able to take them out of their place and put them in that happy place, put them in that setting where they really experience something great. For me, that's pretty awesome to be able to do that, and to know that we do that on a regular basis. We're not thinking about just the bottom line. That's a great purpose. It's a reason to get out of bed in the morning.
We all believe in the same thing. We're all wearing, metaphorically the same thing. At least we all have the same guidelines in which we go through our daily routine, not only just in the office, but outside of the office as well. And I think with vision, I mean, if we're talking about like how do we get invested in like new concepts, I think it's because we share the same core values. And so like even when we started announcing like our new vision was delivering happiness, like it just made sense. It was like the right progression because again, we share the same values. So we were kind of excited to take it beyond just our culture and taking it. It wasn't, I guess, it wasn't a surprise at all. We're really excited to have it happen.
I think the thing that companies really can learn from Zappos and from being here and experiencing what we experience on every day is the value that the company places on the employees. There's actually the idea of customer service. When I first started working here, I thought, man, Zappos is all about the customer. And the reality of it is Zappos is all about the employee. Because we take care of the employees and because the company takes care of us, that spills out over into our customer service. So really, customer service is a result of the fact that the company cares about me and invests in me and pours what they can into me.
I think the most important values are, leaning on each other, having that family environment, because everyone will grow to have a pride of ownership of what the final product is.
There is something at Zappos that shines the sky in the corporate America that leaves a glowing mark with people, and I think that's the core of the company.
I'm valued as an individual, as a person, and I add something to the company. They're not just taking from me, but they're investing in me.
They let you do what you want to do, and they trust the employee, and that trust really makes a wonderful working experience.
So, what did you take away from that? Maybe it was the unicorn behind them in the video. Maybe it was the way that the employee carried these values back. It changed their life. It changed how they showed up in the 220s and how they decided to wow somebody by not taking it and actually turning it in to give back to the person. Maybe it was this takeaway that, wow, culture actually changes people, which changes the outcome for my customer. As you heard these people talk about how they apply those values into the services they provide. So who knows? I'm sure you got something from that. And I hope you get this, start to understand that what is this idea of a culture and what kind of a culture do I have? Well, one thing to take away is that this idea of company culture is not always the same. If we listen to different people in the video, they talked about it maybe just a little differently, what was core to them or what stood out to them. The reality is within your organization, depending on the size, if you have teams working within your organization, you likely have subcultures. If you have individuals, they likely have differences. So when you look about trying to define the company culture, we need to really take into account the overall, as well as this idea that there could be subculture differences. Companies oftentimes talk about, well, is the IT department, when they get a little bigger, is the IT department different than the sales team? Probably, based on who those people are and who's attracted to those roles. So does the culture feel different when you come into work within the IT department versus coming in within the sales team? Possibly, right? So you can have subcultures within your organization. And when you think about company culture, it's the collective. It's not just any one point of view. Like the owner, as my owner of my company, I can say what I think the company culture is, but it's also defined by those people that work with me and for me. It's not me alone that's actually defining company culture. No one person is bigger than the company culture because it's owned by all of us. Well, when we define company culture, there are four basic types. And again, there's no culture is an all one type of no one type for all of the company. Typically, there's these elements that translate into each of the four types of cultures. Yet, culture again influences our operational excellence in the organization. So this mix really matters. This model that you're seeing is called the competing values framework. And this is taken from research done by Cameron and Quinn at the University of Michigan. If you want to learn more about this idea from based on what I'm talking about today, you can actually go out and pick up their book, read through it, and it'll help you give a better understanding of this idea of these four types of cultures and how they translate into the workplace. Also, within my book, Life Changing Leadership Habits, I get into how you apply this. But if you want to understand from their perspective as the foundation, you might want to pick up that book. It's a great read. And what you'll notice is they call this out. There are four main quadrants. There's a collaborate, they describe as do things that last. There's a create, do new things. There's a compete, do things now, and there's a control, do things right. And that companies are oftentimes a mix of these four different elements, and they're called competing because of do you have some of the times there's these two collaborate and control have more of an internal focus on integration, and create and compete have more of an external focus and differentiation. So how can you be all external and internal? You can't, but you can be a mix of those, and that's what we're going to talk about. But first, let's understand these four cultures. So the first one is the clan culture. This is a culture that describes themselves as a family. They tend to treat the leader like a parent or a mentor. And their idea is that they're highly committed, very have a lot of solidarity and the commitment, right? Just like a family. Blood is thick, right? These company cultures are strongly personal, and there's this commitment to each other. Then there's this a type called an autocracy or a market-driven culture, and again, their focus is more external, so the feelings of that or the culture type is more of an innovation, entrepreneurial. The culture has a very dynamic presence. People are rewarded and typically just trying to create new things. They're willing to take risks and experiment, and they're very much about innovation. Then there's the compete quadrant, and this is what more of a hierarchical kind of or sorry, a market-driven culture, and it's very much about hard driving, demanding, the winning reputation, success and numbers. It's the results, right? Results and experience. Let's get things done, kind of a company. The culture is defined by the results that are produced, not by the family aspects of who they are, but more about the outcomes of what they produce together. And then the last one is the hierarchy culture. This is the quadrants about the leaders on top, the employees are below, and we serve the leader. The leader defines what is done, and the employees execute it. Typically, organizations that you'd think of in this role would be like your military, all right, command and control, high structure. People have their lanes and they stay within their lanes. And so those are the four broad types of cultures that can exist. And within these four culture quadrants and culture types, the way that we assess these is we look to measure six different aspects, help us understand which of the quadrants are we in from a culture perspective, and what does that mix look like. So the six elements that we can measure within a culture are the dominant characteristics, the organizational leadership style, the management of the employees, how they manage people, the organizational glue, those are the things that hold everybody together. What does that? The strategic emphasis, what is the company trying to become? And the success criteria. How do they measure success as a company? Yeah, if you heard about Zappos, think about them. They're what held them together, their people, the type of strategic emphasis was on creating a wow experience for their customer. Success criteria was also looking at them, not just the service or the outcome of the organization. So that all these things influenced what their culture's like. So if we can measure these six aspects of culture, we can help understand what type of culture we have going on. So I have an activity for you. In the handout, there is a question there, and I want you to think about your company. Okay, and you have to allocate 100 points across each of these A, B, C, D questions. You need to allocate that 100 points. So so if you look at the first question here, statement, the organization is a very personal place. It's like an extended family. People seem to share a lot of themselves. How many of that 100 points would you say, I'm going to give, 80% of the points to that? So 80 points. Okay. But then you have to spread the remaining 20 across B, C, and D. So you want to take that 100 points, and how would you align the points today? If you were thinking about your company culture today, how would you define it? So take a few minutes. I'll give you a couple minutes here and answer this question for now, and then also for the future. Now, the future is the ideal future. What if this company, if your culture was exactly what you want it to be? Would that mix stay the same? Would the now look just like the future, or would it shift a little bit? Would you move in a different direction? So allocate that 100 points against the ideal state of what you think your company culture should be. And again, your company culture, you get to define what it is and what it should be based on the strategy that you're trying to accomplish, the type of company that you are, all these different variables. But you get to decide this. So go ahead and answer these two questions. All right. So at this point, you should have come close to being able to allocate your points. You might need some more time. And again, you're going to want to measure this across all of the different people in your organization and ask them this, because it's not just you, it's what do they think as well. And you can do this through a survey, or it could just be a conversation. You could share them your results and ask them for feedback on, do they see it the same way, or would they shift it anyway? And after you get the results, you then want to go through and actually plot it on the graph that's on that handout as well. So if you allocated the points, you can see there's this radial graph here that spreads out, and you've got one, two, three, four different rings. So 25 points, it would be here in the first ring, 50 points on the second ring, 75 points on the third ring, and 100 points on the top ring. So if you, for the question A, or the statement A, how many points did you put down for now? Go ahead and put a X or a circle. I have the green circle for now, but you can do whatever you want. Put it on the graph where that falls, and then put again, a circle or a Y or whatever you want to put down for the future, and look to see if they're the same, then they just fall right on top of each other. That's fine. But you want to kind of call out the differences by question or by statement, and you'll start to then see what is the current state of this organization and what is the future state of the organization. Is there an opportunity? Now, after you plot this, you want to ask two questions. On which items are the gaps the greatest between now and the future? As I compare them, which are the greatest? Okay. And that becomes now an opportunity for you to dial in and decide, oh, okay, so what do I need to do or become to be more like the create culture, or more, in this case, the future is higher under collaborate. That's my biggest gap. So then it would be, what do I need? What kind of culture should it look like from a collaborate perspective? And the question, if we go back to that, is the organization's a very personable place. It's extended family. So what types of things do extended families do? What does a personable place look like? Now you could start to define that for the organization and have down an aspirational statement around what you want the culture to look like. I want it to be a personable place. I want it to look like a extended family. For my extended family, it would look like a potluck, right? People would be getting together and meeting and bringing in different food items, and that's what families do, and talking, engaging with each other within the work and outside of the work. Um, so that's the first question. The second question you want to ask is, on which items are there discrepancies and similarities among different teams? So if you have multiple teams doing this, you want to look to see where there's differences. It's not uncommon. Again, you're going to find one team maybe has a slightly different culture than another. Sometimes they overlap, but when I've worked with a number of different small businesses, I can tell you that oftentimes the teams have slight differences, and they know that about themselves. They've just never been able to verbalize it. And this framework and these questions provide a way to frame it and then talk about, well, what does the future look like? Create a common future. Now we can talk about how do we all need to change, which groups all we all need to change to be more like the desired future state. And again, you can, now that you know what it is, what your company culture is, and what you want it to be, we can move on to the next step. So the first step was defining your culture. The second step is describing the culture. You got to translate it. You got to turn it into something that's not just those questions. You got to bring it to life. Zappos brought it to life by putting out this video, right? And they brought a lot of information into it. The model that you can use to put the information into that kind of a video is this ABCDE model for culture. It's because culture is a mosaic, it's a tapestry. It's not just one single paint stroke, it's a myriad of paint strokes. So it's best understood at looking at it in layers that make up the company culture. So the models suggest that the higher levels determine the lower levels. Beliefs determine competencies, which are the things I want to believe, the things that determine what I can do. If I believe I can do this, I'm more likely to do it. And then what I can do controls what I actually will do, right? If I have the capability to do it, I'm more likely that I will do it. And what I will do determines my outcome, and my outcomes determine what's visible to the world and the environment and people see. So you can see how this, like layers of an onion or tapestry, the painting of strokes, these all kind of translate into what we understand as a company culture. So it allows us to talk about it more comprehensively. So as you define your culture, you want to think about defining it from the ABCDE model. Here's how you could do that. You want to first just take some time, and I would actually encourage you to start doing this now and think about, how do we see ourselves? What would be a key word or image or metaphor? Maybe what would be a bumper sticker that would describe our company culture? Think about it that way and start to capture some words or an image. And that's that A level, the identity. The B is what is important, right? And so, what are our values? Now, values and competencies are different. So, values are the intangibles. They're based on feelings, their perceptions, their preferences, and priorities. Maybe your company already has a set of values defined. Maybe you haven't. If you haven't, now's the time to do that and start to think through, what are the values, the intangibles that people feel as being a part of this company? What does it look like? For my company, one of them is I have humor because I want it to be a fun environment. I also have service because of that commitment on serving others. Well, what are your values? What are the things that you hold dear to you? And again, I would put it at, no more than seven. 3 to 5 is probably a good sweet spot of what are our values. Then you move on to C. What are our core competencies? And these core competencies are tangible and defined on the job behaviors that can be objectively observed and measured. So it's not feelings, um, like humor. I can feel humor. This is the competency. This is this knowledge, skills, and abilities. These are the what people are doing. So what do people do in this culture? Do they hold the door open for others? What do they do? I thought it was funny that in the Zappos, after I made that comment, Zappos said, we don't do that. They don't hold it for others. So what is it? What do people do in your company culture? Capture those things. So an example is they show the way to clients who are looking for something. Some companies do that, right? You come into them and they'll say, "Oh, go down to aisle A1," and others will go, "Here, I'll walk you down to aisle A1 together." So that's an example of what they're doing, right? So capture what to do. And then E, what does your workplace show employees? What are they showing people? What are they doing to make the environment conducive. Some organizations, like you can imagine, here in Grand Rapids, we're blessed with some big organizations like Steelcase and Herman Miller and others, and the furniture organizations, and they give a lot of thought to environment because environment influences how we act and perform. So you want to think about your environment. What kind of environment do you want your culture to be? Do you want to have a little unicorn on in all the pictures going out to everybody? Is that who you are? Because that conveys an environment, doesn't it? It conveys a feeling. So it matters. And they were intentional in this Zappos of showing you different rooms. I thought on one side and stood out to me as a tequila in one of the rooms, right? That stands out. They're making a statement about the type of culture we are, who we are, by the environment and what they choose to put up and display. So think through, answer these questions from the future. What is it that you want it to be? And you can talk about what it is today, if it's what you want it to be in the future. But the key here is really to answer these from the future. Then when you get this together, you want to put it into what we call a design statement. Um, so here's a couple examples. This one is from Etsy. As an Etsy employee, you can do the work you love, be yourself, and make an impact in the lives of millions. Our commitments to diversity and inclusion, team culture, and the spaces where we work all reflect our mission to keep commerce human. Okay, so that was their design statement. And I put another one in here from Ticketmaster. You can read through. They use a question to start with, all work and no play, no way, right? So you can have fun with these design statements. They don't need to be a one-to-one from those questions to this, but you want to get to where your design statements incorporates those A, B, C, D, E elements into a paragraph that can be easily understood by others. It's a way to communicate. This will be one way to communicate about your culture. And think about it like architecting your culture. What do leaders give attention to and talk about regularly? Um, how do leaders react to critical incidents? What is resourced and what is cut? What is modeled and developed? What is rewarded? And from a leader's perspective, who do leaders recruit, promote, and bounce, let go? These are all the primary actions that as a leader you can take to reinforce your culture. Once you design it and you've got your statement to architect it and bring it to life, this is how it works. Nice thing is about these, if you look at these are all things that don't cost any money. They just cost your time and being intentional. You have to be intentional about what are you going to give attention to in the workplace. You have to be intentional if you want your culture to come to life and be more than just words that you talk about. You need to put it into action. And you could do that by when a critical incident comes up, do you blame? Do we turn to the employee who did it wrong? Or do we look to find the answers and solutions? But these are the actions that reveal the culture and they translate it. So I have companies that are interested in becoming more data driven, AI, and needing to make more data driven decisions. And so the question is, well, when a crisis happens, does the leader say, show me the data? What contributed to this? Or does the leader go in, tell me what happened? Give me a story. What happened? Because if you're saying, give me the story, the organization's going to become more story based. If the leader's saying, show me the data, they're going to become more data driven in their organization. So as a leader and business owner, what you have the ability to do is directly impact the culture of the organization just by reinforcing those things that are important to you and your culture. Now, why we don't do that is I think that most of us, it's not a lack of will. I think that our leaders want to do the right thing. I think our business owners, everybody wants a thriving culture. But why is it that some do and have that and some don't? I believe it's intentionality. It's understanding how to do it. It's having these answers like here's what culture is and here's how you define it and here's how you go about creating it. But then it's this perseverance that accompanies that. You need to be deliberate about what it is that you're trying to achieve, and you need to persevere when life gets tough and you're trying to, the curveball comes, something goes wrong in your business. You need to be ready for that. You need to be able to persevere through that in a way that's consistent with your culture. So This, as you think about your culture, we talked about what is it, why it's so important, defining it, and now we're architecting this culture. We're bringing it into life. These first level activities, and these, by the way, according to the evidence and research, are your strongest levers on influencing culture. And they're all about just what you do. It's not hiring a consultant. It's not about going taking a training. It's just about how do you show up makes a big difference around your culture. The secondary tools that you have available to you is how are you designing your organization, your policies and procedures you write down, the workspaces, the traditions and stories, vision, mission statements. But those are secondary. People want to know, what to say is people don't care until they know how much you care about them. People don't care about your vision and mission statements until they get it, believe first that you're somebody worth investing in the first place. So it's what you're doing is going to reinforce your culture the strongest. Then it's secondary. It's these other elements that help support those actions that drive what it is we do. If you want to have a certain type of culture, but then you don't tell anybody about it, you can't be upset when you don't have that culture because you never told them. So there is a role for vision and mission statements and design statements and all these things that we're talking about. There is. It's really important. But there's also this first piece of just how you act. Okay. So when we think about culture change, and for me, maybe you've done the assessment now, or you're starting down that road, and there's things that I need to do as a leader. I just want you to realize that culture change doesn't just happen at the company level. It first happens at the individual level. We've been focusing up to this point and on the organization and the work group. I talked about sub teams and how they influence the organization's culture, but I want to take a step back. And when we think about culture and change, it starts with ourselves. I love in my office, I have one of the quotes I have up is be the change you want to see in the world from Gandhi. Well, this is the idea. Change at the culture change level starts at the individual. If you want a different company culture, be the change you want to see and win people over individually. And then that'll translate into differences at the work group level, that then translate into differences at the organization level. So a culture change initiative is not a company initiative. It's an individual change initiative. It's understanding what it is, where it needs to go, and then working at the individual one-to-one with people on what it should look like and how that should be translated into the workplace. So, what I want you to think about is what is it that you need to start doing to realize the preferred culture? After all this talk that I've been going through, I hope something is jumping out to you. It's that Zappos video, it's something, and you're going, man, I've never really given thought to this. We need to think about this aspect of our culture. What is it that you need to start doing? What are you already doing that's really going well that you just want to continue? You want to make sure we don't drop the ball on. So when it comes to company culture, where are you already doing well? No one is all good or all bad. No company is all good or all bad. And the reality is that everybody can improve. Zappos can improve. Everybody can improve. So, but where are these opportunities that you want to continue doing things that are pulling you in that direction towards your future culture, desired state? And then the last is what do you want to do less of? What do you want to abandon? What are the things that we've got to stop doing? Maybe you're sending the wrong signals. You actually want to be less of a family and more of an innovative organization. So, how you're working with people, the things you're talking about and reinforcing, you need to shift a little bit. You need to shift how you're talking about it. Companies want to be innovative and creative. Something somewhere needs to change, right? And so we've got to look at what we're doing to reinforce that. And maybe there's some things that just need to stop doing. So those are what do you need to abandon, what do you need to do less of. So you should have three columns. These are the things I think we should start doing. These are the things that I want us to continue to do. And these are the things I want us to stop doing less of. Now you've got a plan of action, right? There's things now you can go ahead and set time frames. You can assign responsibilities, and you can start building a path. Recognize that culture change is a process. It's not a destination. You're going to get there over time. So you need to work over time. Also, just wanted to show you there are leadership competencies. So these are the what knowledge, skills, and abilities you need as a business owner or leader to be able to draw out this type of a culture. So if you want to lean into the collaborate, the clan culture, be more of that family, you need to look for leaders, hire and retain and skill and develop leaders, and look in your own mirror and assess how are you doing with collaboration, communication, conflict management, development of leaders, interpersonal effectiveness, and leading others. If you had to score yourself on a 1 to 5, one being not at all, five being to a great extent, how well are you doing these things? Again, remember your actions, which come from your competencies and your values, they are what drives this company culture. So as you look to hire new leaders or you look to hire new team members, if you want to know you need to move into one of these quadrants more, you want to look for these attributes in these individuals, and you want to also then invest in developing people in these areas. Think about conflict management. Right now in the world today, we're more polarized than ever. Conflict's going to happen. You need to give people the skills and abilities and how to handle that well if you want them to collaborate. If collaboration is not as important, then maybe you can minimize the need for people to have the conflict management skills. Although I'd make an argument everybody needs a base of this, it becomes more important when we look at the collaborate quadrant. So for each quadrant, we've defined, and this comes right out of Cameron and Quinn's work in their book as to what these elements are that are important to these different cultures that we're trying to obtain. The next, I want to give you just some tips for change. This comes from 25 years of experience working within, again, a lot of different companies. Here's what my tips to you. One, ensure one quick visible result. If you're going to invest into trying in doing an assessment, uh, creating a design statement, and then trying to live this out, if you're going to invest all this time, energy into this, what would be a visible result you could show your team? So think about, make sure that you make it visible. Companies often fail. They go out and do the work. As a leader, right? We got a checklist of doing the work. So we do it. Then we never tell anybody that we did it. And not everybody sees it right away. So the key is you want to tell them what you're going to do it, and tell them what you did and why you did it. You follow that pattern, and it'll help with the culture change. Also, make sure you show a necessity. Some people call this the burning platform. You want to talk about why culture is important and the benefits it can bring, and why it's important now. Because they're in their mind, they're thinking all the things I need to be focused on. Why are we focusing on this now? Show a necessity for it. Also, focus on people who are willing to change. Not everyone is going to buy into this or maybe buy into it as easily. Start with those that are willing to change and build a coalition behind you of change agents. And then, of course, be the change. Be brave, be courageous, be the change that you want to see in the workplace, and that'll pull you in the best direction. You also want to sell the culture shift. You want to make sure that you're capturing stories along the way, incidents that represent how the new culture is working. So when you have a success with one of the new things that you're doing, whether it's anything, you want to pull that out and talk about it and tell people in your newsletter, maybe at a shift meeting or a chance that you get together. Share what's the success of the work that you're doing. Make sure it's short, clear, and concrete, and make sure it reinforces those values that you set out that from a company culture. And just a little bit of humor here. Anticipate challenges. I don't know about you. Every year it seems like, and we're getting ready to have another new year. I start the year wanting to look like Thor there, and then I end up looking like Thor at the end of the series, where I'm just, not quite the same. Well, the reality is, culture change is difficult. In fact, I'll even go so far to say culture change is dangerous. The reason being is that the culture that you have is being reinforced by the people that are there. And if you go to change it, you're changing something for people. And The only person that likes change is a wet baby, right? It's somebody that has a need. And so change for change's sake can be really a hard sell. And you just recognize it's difficult. I've also seen leaders that think that maybe they're stronger than the company culture. They think that they can change things because they're the CEO, they're the executive in charge. But just realize that your people are what make your organization. If they choose to leave, you don't have an organization. You will now no longer be a leader. You'll be a leader of nobody. So just realize that this is something to give thought and to take carefully, and to include others in this. What makes that ideal culture so that they have a voice into it. Change imposed is change opposed. You want to make sure that you're getting buy-in. Also, maybe some of you are saying, I don't have the time to work on this. Well, let me just challenge you for that. I don't think you have the time not to work on it. Again, culture is the one thing that impacts everything. If you have a problem of attracting, engaging, and retaining your employees, which by the way, I right now, every company I talk to, that's a challenge. This is the thing that is behind that. This is the one thing that impacts everything in your business, your customers, you, their lives, etc. This is something that's worth doing. I just want to make a case. It's your choice on how you prioritize your time and what you do, but just realize it's not busy work. This is something that's driving your business. Why not be intentional about it? Why not at least define what it should be and try to start going in the right direction, right? Don't just leave it up to happenstance. The best cultures are those that are designed intentionally and reinforced. The world is constantly pulling on your business to tear it apart. If you're not investing into making it better and growing it, it's not just going to happen over time. It really requires intentionality on your part. So be ready for some challenges. And when I wrap up any workshop, I like to end with a plan of action. I've given you lots of next steps. You've got the handout, things that you can do. Start with formulating a plan of change. So just this is it. Write down right now, what is one thing I am going to do tomorrow? What's the one thing I'm going to do? Pick one thing. Maybe for you, it's to measure your culture. Maybe for you, it's to work on the environment. Maybe it's to put up a sign. I don't know. But what are you going to do? What's one thing that you can commit to? And then just put it into action. Take action tomorrow. Hold yourself accountable. Tell others this is what you're doing, why you're doing it, and then follow through. And you'll start to build a culture that's a thriving company culture. It's like a journey of 1,000 miles that begins one step at a time. I want to thank you for viewing my presentation. Also tell you that if you're looking for more information, maybe you're at this point in the webinar, you've got to the point and you're like, I feel like I've got a good enough understanding. I can go out and do something. And I hope you do. If you're in that bucket, go do it. If you're in the bucket of like, I need a little more information on some of that stuff you talked about, you might want to pick up the Cameron and Quinn book or my book on life-changing leadership habits, which talks about these ideas and how you can go out and do it. And if for some of you, you might be, hey, I just want to hit the easy button. Feel free to hit the easy button. Reach out to Local First, reach out to me directly. We'd love to help set you up with the resources to be effective. Because again, we believe that we're all connected and the impact is not just on your business, it's on all of us. And we want to help you out. So just feel free to hit the easy button, give me a call. I'd love to work with you and talk about how I can help and put a plan together that you can execute or I can execute with you. So thank you again, Kathleen. Thank you for your time and being a part of today's Local First webinar.
Yes, thank you so much, Jeff. Appreciate all of the expertise that you've shared with us and love this framework that change management doesn't happen in a silo. So there are all these great ways to measure what we're doing to make sure folks feel brought up to speed with what change is possible and make sure that there's investment buy-in across the organization. So really excited to get this out to our business owners. And like Jeff said, if there's any questions that you have about this webinar, other educational resources that we have hosted, I'd love to make sure we get all those resources in your hands. And we will be linking the handouts and other materials that Jeff spoke about today as well, so that you can download those and use those tools within your own business practice. That's all we have for you today, so we'll wrap it here, and please reach out if you have any additional questions. Thank you all so much.